The first thing Cadet Lyra Vaelor learned about humans was that every official report was incomplete. The archives of the Galactic Conquered described them as adaptable, physically resilient, emotionally unpredictable, and dangerously loyal. Military analysts warned that humans were impossible to intimidate. Economists admired their relentless creativity. Diplomats complained that they ignored tradition whenever it stood in the way of common sense. None of those reports mentioned the small things. None of them explained why humans laughed in the middle of disasters, planted flowers beside battlefields, or stopped to help strangers without asking who they were. Lyra's assignment was simple. She was one of the brightest xenological officers of the Asterian Union, chosen to spend 6 months living among humans aboard the exploration vessel Aurora. Officially, she was there to observe their customs before the Union considered expanding diplomatic relations with Earth. Unofficially, she was expected to discover their weaknesses. The High Council believed humanity's rapid rise threatened the balance of power. If conflict ever came, understanding humans might decide the outcome before the first shot was fired. She accepted the mission with perfect confidence. Her people considered emotions distractions that clouded judgment. Every decision was expected to serve logic, stability, and the Union. Personal attachments outside one's own species were almost unheard of. Love itself was regarded as a private biological inconvenience, never something worthy of shaping history. Humans, she was told, would prove exactly why. The Aurora entered orbit around New Geneva Station, humanity's largest diplomatic port beyond the solar system. Unlike most stations in the galaxy, it wasn't designed to impress visitors with towering monuments or polished symmetry. Instead, it looked alive. Cargo ships arrived every few minutes carrying supplies from dozens of colonies. Families walked through open gardens beneath transparent domes. Children from different species chased one another across public plazas, while musicians performed near crowded cafes. Lyra frowned. According to the Union's intelligence files, humans were preparing for inevitable galactic competition, yet everywhere she looked, they invested resources into parks, schools, theaters, and public spaces. It seemed inefficient. Captain Elena, Brooks welcomed the Asterian delegation personally. "We're happy to have you aboard," the human captain said with a smile. Lyra had practiced human etiquette extensively, but she still hesitated. "You appear unusually pleased to host foreign observers," Captain Brooks laughed. "We're explorers. Meeting new people is the best part of the job." Again, not in the reports. Within hours, Lyra received her personal guide. Lieutenant Ethan Carter, the captain introduced. "Best engineer on the ship. He volunteered to show you around." Lyra studied him carefully. Average. Human height, minor scars across his hands, dark hair slightly untidy despite military regulations. His uniform carried fresh grease stains. "You repair engines personally?" she asked. He grinned. "Machines don't fix themselves. You could assign technicians. I could. You choose not to. I like building things." Another answer the reports never predicted. During the following weeks, Ethan introduced her to every section of the Aurora. Engineering was loud, warm, and filled with people solving impossible problems together. Scientists argued passionately before sharing coffee minutes later. Security officers trained beside botanists. Pilots helped mechanics replace damaged components without caring whose official responsibility it was. Everyone seemed connected. On Asterian vessels, every department remained separate. Efficiency demanded strict organization. Human efficiency appeared to come from friendship. Lyra found the concept strangely fascinating. One afternoon, she discovered Ethan repairing an old service drone that had officially reached the end of its operational life. The replacement unit would perform better, she observed. "I know. Then why repair this one?" He tightened another bolt before answering. "It still works. It is obsolete, so it has no strategic value." He smiled. "My grandfather taught me never to throw something away if it can still help somebody." She tilted her head. "You repaired it 'cause your grandfather believed it deserved another chance?" "No," Ethan replied softly, "because somebody else might." That answer stayed with her for days. As the months passed, Lyra quietly abandoned her prepared questionnaires. Instead of asking humans about military doctrine, she asked why they celebrated birthdays. Instead of researching tactical behavior, she attended music performances. Instead of studying command structures, she joined volunteer crews rebuilding damaged civilian habitats after meteor storms. Humans never questioned why she asked so many personal questions. They simply answered. One evening, the station suffered a massive power failure after a reactor malfunction, crippled several energy grids. Emergency lighting flooded the corridors in crimson light. Without waiting for orders, hundreds of civilians rushed toward medical centers, engineering bays, and rescue shelters. Lyra expected panic. She found determination instead. Ethan disappeared into the engineering decks. She followed. "You shouldn't be here," he shouted over the alarms. "You require assistance. I require you somewhere. Safe?" "I was assigned to observe." He handed her a diagnostic scanner. "Congratulations. You're observing." For the next 6 hours, they crawled through maintenance tunnels, restoring damaged power conduits. At one point, an explosion sealed part of the corridor behind them. Smoke filled the compartment. Emergency systems failed. Lyra's pulse accelerated for the first time since joining the mission. She was afraid. Ethan noticed immediately. "Hey," she looked toward him. "We're getting out." "You cannot know that." "I don't." "Then why state it with certainty?" "Because if one of us starts believing we're trapped," he smiled despite everything, "and then we're definitely trapped." Somehow his confidence felt contagious. Together, they restored auxiliary power. The emergency doors reopened. Thousands of civilians regained electricity. Later, Captain Brooks informed them their repairs had prevented catastrophic reactor failure. Ethan simply shrugged. Anyone would have done it. Lyra knew that wasn't true. She had studied dozens of civilizations. Many would have saved themselves first. Humans seemed incapable of ignoring strangers in danger. That realization unsettled her more than any military secret. Weeks later, the High Council requested her first classified assessment. She stared at the communication terminal for nearly an hour before recording her report. Humanity demonstrates unprecedented cooperative behavior. Their greatest strength is neither technology nor military capability. Their defining characteristic is voluntary self-sacrifice for unrelated individuals. She paused, then deleted the sentence. "No, that still wasn't accurate." She started again. "The central force behind human civilization is affection." She hesitated before transmitting. Her superiors would not understand. She barely understood it herself. One evening, Ethan invited her to watch Earth's sunrise from the station's observation dome. "Earth isn't even below us," Lyra pointed out. "It will be in 14 minutes. "You calculated orbital timing for a sunrise?" "I've done it since I was a kid." They sat quietly beneath the transparent ceiling. The stars slowly shifted. Then, beyond the curve of the planet, brilliant blue light emerged. Across the darkness, Earth appeared white. Clouds drifted across endless oceans. Golden sunlight reflected from the atmosphere like liquid fire. Lyra had visited countless worlds. None had ever seemed alive. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, you say that without surprise. I've seen it hundreds of times. Then why continue watching?" He smiled without taking his eyes off the planet. "Some things are worth seeing every single time." Lyra didn't realize she was looking at him instead of the sunrise. For reasons she could not explain, her heartbeat refused to slow, and somewhere deep inside, beneath years of disciplined logic and perfect emotional control, a feeling she had never been taught to recognize quietly began to grow. The days that followed should have been routine, yet nothing felt ordinary to Lyra anymore. She found herself adjusting her schedule so that her inspections coincided with Ethan's maintenance shifts. She told herself it was for research. Human engineers displayed remarkable problem-solving habits that deserved careful observation. That explanation satisfied the official records. It did not satisfy the quiet voice in her mind that noticed how much brighter the engineering deck seemed whenever he smiled. Ethan noticed the change, long before she admitted it to herself. "You've been here 3 times this week," he said while replacing a damaged plasma regulator. I'm studying human engineering." He glanced around at the bustling maintenance bay. "So, you're studying me?" She hesitated just long enough for him to grin. "I am studying your methods." "That's safer," she frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means if you say you're studying me, everyone in engineering will tease me for months." She looked around the room. Several technicians were already trying very hard not to laugh, for reasons she couldn't explain. She felt warmth spread across her face. Humans called it blushing. The realization only made it worse. One evening, the Aurora intercepted a distress beacon from a merchant convoy trapped inside a dense ion storm. Navigation systems across the sector warned that entering the storm carried an unacceptable probability of destruction. Most captains would have marked the convoy as a tragic loss. Captain Brooks gave a different order: prepare. Rescue operations, no debate, no committee, no delay. Within minutes, the ship accelerated, directly toward the storm. Lyra stared at the command. "Display. There are over 200 civilians aboard those." "Freighters," Captain Brooks nodded. "That's why we're going. The probability of losing this vessel exceeds 28%. Still worth it. From a strategic perspective, sacrificing a military explorer is irrational." The captain looked at her with calm certainty. "Maybe," then she smiled. "But those families don't deserve to die because the math looks bad." The Aurora plunged into the storm. The ship shook violently as blue lightning danced across its shields. Warning alarms echoed through every deck while sensors failed one after another. In engineering, Ethan and his team fought to keep the engines. Online power fluctuations spread across the reactor. One containment relay exploded. Another followed seconds later. Lyra grabbed emergency tools without waiting for instructions. Ethan looked up in surprise. Thought observers stayed behind safety barriers. "I have observed enough," he laughed despite the chaos. "Glad to have you." Together they crawled through narrow maintenance shafts filled with smoke and failing conduits. Every repair created 2 new problems. Every restored system bought only a few more minutes. At one junction they discovered a collapsed support beam, trapping a young technician beneath twisted metal. The rescue would cost precious time. Ignoring him would increase the chances of saving the ship. Lyra instinctively calculated the probabilities. Before she spoke, Ethan was already lifting the beam. 2 more. Engineers joined him. Then another. No one asked whether it was efficient. The technician was freed. The engines remained online. Hours later, the battered convoy emerged safely from the storm. 3,000 civilians survived. As exhausted crew members gathered in the main hangar, rescued children ran toward complete strangers, thanking them with tearful hugs. Little girl approached Ethan. She couldn't have been older than 6. She handed him a small, handmade bracelet woven from colorful fibers. "Grandma made this," she said shyly. "You saved us," Ethan knelt so they were eye to eye. "I'll treasure it." After she left, Lyra examined the bracelet. "It possesses no material value." "I know. Yet you appear honored." "I am." She looked at the smiling families, filling the hangar. "They cannot repay what you risked. They don't have to." "Then why do humans continue doing this?" He answered without hesitation. "Because someday we might need someone to do the same for us." That answer echoed through her thoughts. Long after the celebration ended, weeks passed. The mission reports she transmitted home became increasingly difficult to write. The High Council requested tactical weaknesses. She described humanitarian doctrines. They requested military vulnerabilities. She explained human trust. They demanded psychological flaws. She found herself writing about kindness. The replies from the Union grew colder. Remain objective. Do not become culturally compromised. Remember your loyalty. She obeyed every order, at least on paper. One quiet evening, Ethan found Lyra, alone inside the station's botanical dome, surrounded by flowers gathered from a dozen human colonies. Artificial rain drifted gently through the glass ceiling while distant stars shimmered above. You've been avoiding everyone. I required silence. He sat beside her without speaking. Several minutes passed. Humans seemed unusually comfortable with. Finally she broke it. My people believe. Emotions weaken judgment. And what do you think? I believe the same. Past tense? She looked down at her hands. I no longer know. Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he picked a fallen blue blossom from the path and rolled it gently between his fingers. My mom used to say emotions are like gravity. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Gravity? You can't see it. No, you can't turn it off. No, but it shapes everything. She looked at the flower in his hand. My people would call that poetic. My mom was better at poetry than physics. For the first time that day, Lyra laughed, not politely, not because etiquette demanded it. A real laugh. The sound surprised even her. Ethan smiled as though he'd accomplished something important. In that moment, she realized something frightening. She had stopped counting the days until her mission ended. Instead, she had started wishing it never would. Far beyond the station, hidden inside the encrypted communications network of the Asterian Union, members of the High Council reviewed her latest report in complete silence. One elder finally spoke. She is no longer studying the humans. Another nodded grimly. The humans are changing. A third activated a classified military file that had remained sealed for decades. If diplomacy has failed, he paused. Prepare Phase 1 across the screen. Fleets began quietly moving toward human space, and neither Lyra nor Ethan had any idea that the peace they had been building together was about to face its greatest test. Lyra awoke before the station's artificial dawn, disturbed by a feeling she couldn't explain. It wasn't fear, not exactly. Among her people, intuition was dismissed as an unreliable byproduct of emotion. Humans, however, often called it a gut feeling. After months aboard the Aurora, she had reluctantly begun to accept that humans occasionally sensed danger, long before evidence confirmed it. She dressed quietly and made her way toward the observation deck. Earth hung peacefully in the distance, wrapped in soft blue light. Cargo vessels drifted in orderly lanes while civilian transports departed for nearby colonies. Nothing appeared unusual, yet the uneasy feeling remained. Later that morning, Ethan found her studying long-range traffic reports. Something wrong? I cannot identify it. He leaned against the console. Then maybe nothing's wrong. Humans rarely investigate something because nothing is wrong. He laughed. Okay, you got me there. Before either could continue, Captain Brooks entered the operations center with an expression Lyra had never seen before. All senior officers, briefing room, immediately. The atmosphere inside the room was unusually tense. A holographic star map illuminated the table. Several sectors along the Union border flashed amber. Captain Brooks folded her arms. Long range. Surveillance has detected unusual fleet movements inside Asterian territory. Lyra's heartbeat slowed, not because she was calm, because she suddenly understood the feeling that had awakened her. Military exercises? Ethan asked. Captain Brooks shook her head. No public notification. One intelligence officer enlarged the display. These aren't exploration fleets. Silence filled the room. Lyra stared at the formation. She recognized the deployment pattern instantly. Rapid assault groups, carrier escorts, electronic warfare divisions. This wasn't training. It was preparation. Captain Brooks looked directly at Lyra. Can you explain this? Every eye in the room turned toward her. For several seconds, she couldn't speak. She searched for another explanation. There wasn't one. I cannot. It wasn't a lie. She genuinely didn't know why the Union would mobilize against humanity after months of peaceful cooperation. The captain studied her expression carefully. Finally, she nodded. I believe you. Those 3 words struck Lyra harder than any accusation could have. I believe you. Humans trusted her, even now, even with an alien fleet approaching. The briefing ended with increased security measures but no declaration of emergency. The Aurora continued its mission. Life aboard the station carried on. Families still visited cafes, children still played beneath the gardens, musicians still performed in the central plaza. Humans refused to surrender normal life to fear. That evening, Lyra attempted to contact the High Council through her secure diplomatic channel. The transmission connected after several minutes. 3 counselors appeared. None smiled. Elder Soran, Lyra began. I request clarification regarding current fleet deployments. The information is classified. I possess the highest diplomatic clearance. Not for this operation. She frowned. What operation? The eldest counselor looked at her with disappointment rather than anger. You have spent too much time among humans. My loyalty remains with the Union. Does it? The question felt like a blade. I have fulfilled every assigned report. You have submitted observations. The elder's voice hardened. We requested weaknesses. There are none that justify war. Silence. Then another counselor spoke. You have become emotionally compromised. Lyra stood perfectly still. I have become informed. The transmission ended without another word. She remained staring at the blank display for several minutes. When Ethan found her, she hadn't moved. You look like someone just told you the universe makes no sense. She gave a faint, bitter smile. My government believes I have betrayed them. He didn't ask why. Instead, he quietly sat beside her. After a long silence, he spoke. My dad used to tell me something. She looked toward him. People show who they are when they're afraid. My people are afraid. Looks that way. I do not understand why. You don't have to understand it to know it's wrong. His answer should have been simple. Instead, it felt profound. For the first time in her life, someone had separated loyalty from obedience. Days passed. Border reports became increasingly alarming. Union warships continued assembling. Human intelligence confirmed the same conclusion every independent analyst feared. Someone expected war. Still, Earth refused to strike first. During an emergency meeting of Allied ambassadors, several species demanded a preemptive attack. Captain Brooks rejected the proposal immediately. We don't fire the first shot. What if waiting costs millions of lives? One ambassador argued. Then history will know exactly who started the war. Lyra watched the discussion in silence. Back home, strength meant attacking before your enemy could. Here, strength meant refusing to abandon your principles even under threat. That difference haunted her. Late one evening, unable to sleep, she wandered into engineering. The room was unusually quiet. Ethan sat alone, carefully repairing the small service drone Lyra had first seen months earlier. The obsolete machine, she said softly. He smiled. Still kicking. You never finished repairing it. I did. Then why continue? He looked at the little drone with affection. Maintenance. She tilted her head. You care for machines. I care for things that stay with me. The answer carried more meaning than the words themselves. He reached into a drawer and removed the colorful bracelet given to him by the rescued child weeks earlier. He had attached it carefully around the drone's small chassis. Lyra smiled despite herself. You decorated it. I gave it a reminder. Of what? That even tiny acts of kindness matter. The drone suddenly powered on. Its little optical sensor blinked twice before it rolled clumsily across the workbench. Lyra laughed again. The tiny machine stopped in front of her. Speaker emitted a cheerful electronic tone. Hello. She looked at Ethan. It greeted me. It likes you. Machines cannot form preferences, he shrugged. Tell that to him. The little drone followed her as she walked around the room. She looked down. You programmed this. Nope. It is impossible. I guess he just made a friend. For a moment she forgot the fleets, forgot the council, forgot the growing shadows stretching across the stars. Then every alarm aboard the Aurora activated simultaneously. Red emergency lights flooded the engineering deck. A tense voice echoed through the ship. Unknown military vessels have entered human-controlled space. All personnel to emergency stations. Ethan and Lyra looked at each other. Neither needed to say a word. The moment they had both hoped would never come had finally arrived. The station transformed within seconds. Civilian laughter disappeared beneath the steady rhythm of emergency alarms. Dock workers guided evacuation shuttles with practiced discipline, while military crews powered defensive systems that had not been activated in decades. No one screamed. No one pushed. Every person seemed to understand exactly where they needed to be. Lyra stood on the bridge of the Aurora, staring at the tactical display. More than 400 Asterian warships had crossed the border. She recognized the flagship immediately. The Radiant Judgment. It carried the personal insignia of High Commander Vaelor, her own father. A transmission request arrived almost instantly. Captain Brooks accepted it. The holographic image of the High Commander appeared above the command table. His silver uniform reflected the cold light of the bridge, and his expression never changed when he saw his daughter standing beside the human captain. Cadet Lyra Vaelor. She stood at attention by instinct. "Father, you will return immediately." "I cannot." "You will." Captain Brooks stepped forward. "Commander, this station is a diplomatic facility protected by Galactic treaty. The treaty has been suspended." "By whom?" "By the Asterian Union." Silence settled over the bridge. Finally, the commander spoke again. "Humanity expands too quickly. Your alliances grow stronger every cycle. We will not wait until you become impossible to contain." Captain Brooks met his gaze without anger. "We've never attacked your people. You do not need to." The transmission ended. No threats, no shouting, just certainty. Ethan arrived on the bridge moments later after securing engineering. "So, this is really happening." Captain Brooks nodded. "It is." The fleet outside formed into attack positions. Human defense ships moved into a protective screen around the station. But everyone knew the truth. They were hopelessly outnumbered. An uneasy silence filled the bridge until Lyra stepped forward. "I know their command protocols." Every officer turned toward her. "I can predict their formations." Captain Brooks looked into her eyes. "Will you help us?" There was no hesitation. "Yes." Not because humanity was perfect, not because the Union was evil, because she had learned that loyalty without conscience was merely obedience, and she could no longer obey injustice. Using everything she knew about Asterian doctrine, Lyra identified weaknesses in the approaching formations. Human commanders repositioned their smaller fleet with remarkable precision. Instead of preparing for a decisive battle, they created evacuation corridors for civilians. Ethan noticed. "We're not trying to win," Captain Brooks answered quietly. "We're trying to save lives." The first missiles never launched. Instead, hundreds of civilian transports began escaping through the protected corridors. Families, scientists, children, medical crews. The Asterian commanders watched in confusion. Why? Would humans use their best tactical advantage simply to protect civilians? The answer arrived in the form of thousands of unarmed rescue ships joining the evacuation. Merchant captains, mining vessels, private freighters, even tourists. Every available ship volunteered to help complete strangers' escape. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Asterian sensors confirmed the impossible. Human civilians were willingly flying into a battlefield to rescue people they had never met. Confusion spread through the Union fleet. Many younger officers began questioning their orders. On the bridge of the Radiant Judgment, High Commander Vaelor watched the evacuation unfold in silence. "This is a deception," one general insisted. "No," the commander replied. "It is not." For the first time, uncertainty entered his voice. Meanwhile, disaster struck the station. A damaged reactor, weakened during the earlier ion storm, began collapsing under the strain of combat readiness. If it exploded, millions would die, including both humans and Asterians caught nearby. Captain Brooks prepared the only remaining option. "We have to manually stabilize the core." "It cannot be done remotely," an engineer warned. "The containment chamber will flood with lethal radiation." "I know." Ethan stepped forward. "I'll go." "So will I," Lyra said immediately. He looked at her. "You know what this means?" "Yes." "You might not come back," she smiled softly. Months ago, you told me humans believe some things are worth seeing every single time. His eyes met hers. And? You were right. Together they entered the reactor chamber. The heat was unbearable. Emergency shielding failed one layer at a time. Working side by side, they rerouted damaged conduits while the countdown echoed through the chamber. 5 minutes. 4. 3. The final control assembly refused to engage. Ethan struck it with a maintenance wrench. Nothing. He hit it again. Still nothing. Lyra remembered the old service drone, human machines, human persistence, human refusal to quit. She overrode 3 safety systems simultaneously. The reactor roared. Then, silence. Containment restored. The station survived. Outside, every sensor in the Asterian fleet confirmed the same truth. The 2 individuals who had saved millions had risked their lives not only for humans, but for the invading fleet as well. High Commander Vaelor closed his eyes. He finally understood what every intelligence report had failed to explain. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been its ships. It had been its compassion. He canceled the attack. Across hundreds of warships, firing solutions vanished from tactical displays. Weapons powered down. The invasion ended before a single shot had been fired. Weeks later, representatives from every major civilization gathered aboard New Geneva Station to sign the largest peace accord in modern galactic history. The agreement became known as the Concord of New Geneva. It prohibited wars of preemptive fear and established joint exploration missions between former rivals. Lyra resigned her commission in the Asterian military. Instead, she accepted a position as the Union's first permanent ambassador to Earth. Some criticized her decision. Others called her a traitor. She answered neither. She had found something more important than approval. She had found purpose. Months later, Ethan returned to the botanical dome where they had first spoken honestly. The same blue flowers bloomed beneath the glass ceiling. He held a small box in his hands. I spent weeks trying to think of the perfect speech, he admitted. Lyra smiled. And? I gave up. She laughed. Very human. It is. He opened the box. Inside rested 2 simple rings forged from recycled metal, recovered from the reactor they had repaired together. No gold, no jewels. Just a reminder that even broken things can become something beautiful. His voice trembled. I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know which worlds we'll visit. I don't know how many mistakes we'll make. But I know I don't want to face any of it without you. For several seconds, Lyra couldn't speak. Months earlier, she would have searched for the logical response. Now, she simply followed her heart. Yes, around them, the gardens remained quiet. Beyond the glass, Earth rose once again over the horizon, painting the stars with shades of blue and gold. Some things, Ethan had once said, were worth seeing every single time. Lyra finally understood. It wasn't the sunrise. It was having someone beside you to share it with. And across the galaxy, generations would remember that history's greatest peace had not begun with a victory in battle, but with an alien who had been sent to study humans and fell in love instead.